This is Fadhil Kadhim Hashemi. I'm talking about the case of kidnapping my son from a hospital in Tehran on 1984, Sajjad Hospital. I hospitalized my wife for delivery on 24th of December 1984 in Sajjad Tehran Hospital. A boy was born. He was healthy as per hospital documents, and the childbirth certificate was issued at the same date. They sent my wife to the third floor of the hospital, and the child sent to the newborn room located in the first floor of the hospital, far from his mother. At the same delivery day, Dr. Tabatabai present to mother room. She discharged my wife from the hospital before feeding him, and she recommends keeping the child in the hospital for a few days. The newborn remained in the hospital for 3 days alone, but I was visiting him daily, and he was healthy, settled in the newborn room, and no one of the nurses told me he is suffering from any problem. Next day, I went to meet the child at the newborn room. The nurses there told me to wait for Dr. Azghandi. The doctor present to his room, he told me, "Your child was not healthy. Your child has insufficiency in his heart and brain. Your child passed away because of that. If the child survives, he will be handicapped, and you will both will suffer. So that this incident in your favor." I trust the description of the doctor without any doubt, and without seeing the corpus of the child or any documents prove his insufficiency or death. This description is also against the document issued by him, the doctor, few days before. They charged me only the child burial fees after 11 years on 1995, and by observing reports about child kidnapping from the hospital, as I didn't saw the corpus of my child at that time, so I became doubtful about the case. On 1995, I raised a case against the hospital in one of Tehran courts. I claimed that the hospital doesn't have any evidence for my child's death. The court requested the intelligence police to send one of their police to the hospital to investigate the case. We never seen any documents prove the death of the child. Dr. Ansari, the manager, requested to go to the cemetery to investigate for the death documents. The cemetery issued notice of death number 30748, holding only my family name. The death notice is filled with confusion, and the following important information was left empty. First, the date of the death was left empty. The notice issued after 8 days from the death declaration. The gender of the child was left empty. The name of the parents of the child was left empty. The required signature from management of the cemetery was left empty. The name and the signature of the person who handed the corpus were left empty. The reason of death mentioned a premature child against hospital document. The cemetery archive doesn't contain any death certificate signed by the doctor. The notice is for grave number 39, row 121, tract 93 of the cemetery, but the cemetery documents shows that this grave is also belong to another child, Salahabadi, from Mahdiya Hospital. The verdict issue to acquit the hospital, the reason is that the above mentioned death of notice. The Ministry of Health investigated the case and issued a report confirmed that the child was healthy and there is no death records issued for him. They requested serious and repetitive interrogation for the hospitals. Refer to the above mentioned Ministry of Health report and notice of death. Iran General Prosecutor Mr. Muqtadai requests further investigation but no serious action. At that time, I request grave exhumation The request rejected and the case closed. My wife documents in the hospital shows all the records and the status from delivery time till discharge from the hospital. Finally, it is signed by the doctor. But for my son documents, we observe that most of the important records and status after birth, including death status, if any, was left empty and not signed by the doctor Azghandi. From the above observation, we will conclude that the doctor in charge declared the death of the child only verbally. He did not left any documents or record for the death of the child, as he was aware of kidnapping the child. So in the future the case of kidnapping will be exposed, he will not be accused of issuing fake document for death. On 2004-8, in this year I request to open the case again and again request grave exhumation. The judge requested the cemetery to send the death notice. The officer in the cemetery made a copy of the original notice and cut it from down. The judge, when saw the notice, he understood that this is not complete. He requested the original one, and then the name of the person who issued it exposed, Mr. Mahmoud Sabbagh. The judge requested grave exhumation. According to the cemetery document, this grave should have 2 children. After exhumation, we found the skeleton of 1 child. The representative from the genetic lab were present during the exhumation. They took a sample from the skeleton to the lab. The lab failed to determine the DNA from the skeleton, but they declared that the dimension of the skeleton from the exhumation doesn't match with my child dimension. The forensic medicine also confirmed the same. On March 2012, at this time, the genetic center modernized his test equipment. They repeat the test on the same sample. The result was successful, and they declared the lack of the relationship between the mother and the skeleton. At this stage, I request a serious interrogation to the hospital official, the doctor present, but no serious action, and the judge requests to close the case because of time. During my investigation in the cemetery, I observed that there was a dead child in the hospital, Abul Hassani. He died 1 week before my child death announcement. The hospital sent that corpus to the cemetery in the same day when the cemetery issued my son fake notice. So they might hold the corpus of that child to show me in the place of my child. They hold it for 1 week, then they send it to the cemetery and buried to a different grave. One day, when the case was closed, the doctor himself, Dr. Azghandi, confirmed that the child was kidnapped, confirmed to me in his clinic that the child was kidnapped at that time. Thanks. I'm requesting assistance to find my child. Now he is 30 years. Thanks. This is Fadhil Kadhim Hashemi. I'm talking about the case of kidnapping my son from a hospital in Tehran on 1984, Sajjad Hospital. I hospitalized my wife for delivery on 24th of December 1984. In Sajjad Tehran Hospital, a boy was born. He was healthy as per hospital documents, and the childbirth certificate was issued at the same date. They sent my wife to the 3rd floor of the hospital, and the child sent to the newborn room located in the 1st floor of the hospital, far from his mother. At the same delivery day, Dr. Tabatabai present to mother room. She discharged my wife from the hospital before feeding him, and she recommends keeping the child in the hospital for a few days. The newborn remained in the hospital for 3 days alone, but I was visiting him daily, and he was healthy, settled in the newborn room, and no one of the nurses told me he is suffering from any problem. Next day, I went to meet the child at the newborn room. The nurses there told me to wait for Dr. Azghandi. The doctor present to his room, he told me, "Your